In this video, I'm going to talk about how we do our ceiling and our walls. I'm going to show you how we prep our walls, the materials we use to make sure that we have really nice, straight, clean lines and no squeaks. So if you're building your own van, or even if you're looking for a builder to build your van and want to be able to ask the right questions, then this video is definitely for you. So let's get into it. So you can see on this side, this is the passenger side, we've got this wall all furred out. You can call it furring, framing, whatever you want. It's sort of like a house, but kind of different as well. And really the purpose of these furring strips is to have something to attach your walls to. In the case of this van, it's going to be shiplap, it could be tongue and groove, it could be some kind of wood slats, or it could be panel walls. Now with panel walls, there's two schools of thought. Some people will fur out the walls like this and then attach the panels to it. But really with panel walls, we find that you can just attach them directly to the metal of the van and skip the furring strips. But if you're doing some kind of wallboard, you absolutely need furring strips. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks how we do it to get the best results. Because the way that you fur it out is going to really determine how good your walls look and your ceiling at the end of the build. Now we use 5/8 inch Baltic birch. The reason we use 5/8 is we find that it just holds screws a little bit better. It gives you a little bit thicker material to screw into. The other thing is we have found that Baltic birch really holds screws well. A lot of plywoods don't hold screws as well. And so that's another reason that we use 5/8 Baltic birch. We use 1 1/4 inch stainless steel number 10 screws, just flat head screws that we can countersink. And then we also use marine adhesive. Now the marine adhesive I find is vital. We use it throughout the build. We probably use 6 to 8 tubes of it per van. And especially wherever we're attaching wood to the metal of the van, we use the marine adhesive. You can see a little bit just oozing out. Let's see, right there. And this has been installed for a month and it's still, I can stick my fingernail into it. It's kind of rubbery and it is so strong. We've had to pull furring strips out before and it just tears the wood apart before the marine adhesive will release it. You can heat it, you can do whatever you want. It's not coming off. You got to scrape it off. So it's super, super strong. So what we do is we cut these strips down, then we pre-drill the holes, then we put just a few dollops of marine adhesive. You don't need to cover the whole thing. And because the walls of the van are not necessarily flat and even, if you just put a thin strip, it might not make contact in certain places. So about a quarter-sized dollop every 12 to 18 inches is fine. And then we put that up, then we screw the screws in. And after the marine adhesive sets, you really probably don't even need the screws because that marine adhesive is so strong. Now, if you've ever framed a house or a room or anything like that, you know that you need studs, you need 2x4s anywhere you're going to attach your drywall, your sheetrock. I've framed a few houses. I remember the first house, it was actually a basement that I framed. When the drywallers came in, they looked at it and they said, oh, you need a 2x4 here and here, all these different places, so that they had something to screw their sheetrock into. Because you don't want your sheetrock, if a piece of sheetrock ended right here, you wouldn't want it loose. You would want a stud there that you could attach it to. Well, the same goes when you're attaching these wall boards. You've got to have places to attach your wall boards. I'll call them wall boards. It could be shiplap, tongue and groove, slats, whatever it is. These are slats up on the ceiling made of pine. The walls are going to be shiplap. So whatever it is, I'm just going to call them wall boards. You've got to have places to attach those throughout. And so that's why we have these verticals, because if you just went from here all the way to the front and didn't have anything here, you'd be able to push and they'd kind of flex and wobble. So having these really gives you something to screw into. The other thing is you can see that these extend. These are wider than the metal. And the reason for that is We use pin nails most of the time for our shiplap. If it's wallboards, we may use screws. But we want it to hang over so that we can put the screws actually not where the metal is, because if we put screws in where the metal is, or a pin nail, it might hit the metal. It might go through and hit the metal. But we can put them just to the side of that, and if we do that, we can screw in here, and it's going to miss the metal of the walls. And we also do that on the ceiling, where we definitely use screws. When you're using screws, as you can see right up here, we've got screws across here. Don't know if you can see that or not, but we're putting those screws in. We've got our furring strips about 4.5 inches wide, and the metal rib is maybe a couple inches wide, so it hangs over on each side, so we can put those screws in and they'll miss the metal of the ceiling. So this van has van speed capsules, and you can see we framed it out, and we do our furring strips exactly to where we want to frame out this, and then we will attach our shiplap onto it. But we basically frame out that whole thing. Same thing up here where we've got a window, the furring strips frame out that window, and then we'll attach our shiplap to that. And then when we make our trim ring for our window and put it in, it gives you something to attach to all the way around. Now you can see down here we've done furring strips on the bottom. When we're doing extruded aluminum cabinets, we do not put furring strips on the bottom. We attach those extruded aluminum cabinets directly to the wall using spacers, plastic spacers, to separate them from the wall. But with wood, we actually do put furring strips down below, and then we'll screw this into the wood strips, the wood furring strips. So for example, you can kind of see here, this is an extruded aluminum mechanical box. We've attached it directly to the metal wall of the van with these spacers. And by the way, we do offer those spacers. They're on our website. If you're using extruded aluminum cabinetry, then it's a really nice thing to have. And so you can check out that. I'll put a link in the description. I'll also mention a couple of other resources that we have. So we have a Google Doc with all of the materials that we use in our van builds, that we've spent years compiling, testing, finding the best products. And so there's a link to that down below. And then we also now are offering our van build sequence template. It's a spreadsheet that we use when we're building a van to make sure that we do everything in the proper order, that we hit all of the steps, all the prep, everything like that. So there's also a link to that in the description, so check it out. So when we're doing extruded aluminum, as I said, we just bring the we don't have furring strips down below. We just, if we are doing furring strips, we'll just bring them down. So you can see here, we've just brought the furring strip down to here, and then we're gonna have 15 series 80/20 bars, and then a 1/2 inch bed platform, which is going to come to here. So we just bring the furring strips down to where the bed is going to be. We don't want the bed butting up into it. We just want it coming down on top of it. And the same goes for cabinetry and everything else that we're doing with extruded aluminum. Now, a little tip that we've kind of found after doing multiple vans using shiplap is we can do this with no nails or screws showing. So I'll explain to you how we do that. We first paint everything outside of the van. First couple of vans, what we did is we installed all our shiplap, then we puttied it, sanded it, painted it. It creates such a mess in the van, and it's just really hard to get it to look good. So what we do now is we spray all of these boards with our spray gun. You can roll it if you want, but spray gives a little bit better finish, and there's some pretty inexpensive ones that you can get. But either way, we paint it outside of the van, and then the way that we install it is we start at the top. We always have this tongue facing down, okay? So we'll put up the top one. We'll first put a dollop of marine adhesive every 12 to 18 inches, and then we'll put it up, and then we'll just pin nail it into the tongue, okay, down here. And then the next board goes up, and it's gonna cover up those pin nails, and then we'll just put pin nails in the tongue of the next one and work our way down. And by doing this, you have a great finish. You don't have to sand or putty anything, and it just makes for a really, really clean install. This piece of shiplap is butted right up to the bottom of the cabinets, and then you can see here, there is no shiplap back here, and there's nothing on the ceiling. We will put in ABS plastic liners that we put in the back, and I have a video on how we do our upper cabinets if you want to check that out. But that way, if we ever need to get it wiring, we have full access. All we have to do is pop out that backing, that liner, pop it out, and then we can just get access to anything that we need up in the ceiling. Now here's a little tip on how we get this angle perfect right here and have it really clean and smooth so we don't have to put up any trim. And that is, we cut these pieces just a little bit long so they're hanging out, and then we hold it up and we put a little ruler on it. We draw a line right on that so you can see that is matching the contour of the van perfectly. Then we take it over to the saw, our miter saw, we cut right on that line, then we bring it back up, push it over, mark it here, take it back, cut this side off, and then we get these things just perfectly aligned. In our first vans, you know, we would have to put trim all the way around everything to kind of cover up. Trim, in my opinion, kind of covers up your imperfections, but we've kind of got to the point now where we barely have to use any trim, really just across the front of the ceiling, the back of the ceiling, and a couple other spots. But if you make your cuts really nice and clean, everything lined up, everything tight, then it really eliminates the need to use trim. Now let's talk about how we do our ceiling furring strips. And so it's basically the same way. It's a little dark in here, but I wanted to be able to show you in one that doesn't have the ceiling in yet exactly how we do it. So again, like I said, we make these pretty wide so they hang out over these ribs, so we can put our screws up into here and they can go through a little bit, because we use a certain screw called the trim head screw, and those, the shortest ones we've been able to find are 1.25 inches. And so if they're going to go through your ceiling material, through your shiplap, and poke out a little on the other side. So that's why we do it, so that we miss this rib, so the screws aren't hitting that metal rib. Now again, we use marine adhesive. We use a rib nut down the middle in the factory hole that's already there. We bore that out to accept a 1/4-20 rib nut. We put the rib nut up there. Then we put some marine adhesive across this. We screw this one in, and what it does is pulls this thing right up to the ceiling and gives these a little bit of curvature to follow the curve of the van. Then we just put those 1.5 inch number 10 stainless steel screws on either side to hold that up. But between the marine adhesive and those screws and that rib nut, they're not going anywhere. And then this gives us something to attach all of our slats to, and we screw into it. So let's jump back into the other van and I'll show you how we attach them. So these are those screws I was talking about, the trim head screws. Hopefully this is focusing on it. Little teeny head on the screw. These are 1.25 inches. These happen to be white. We also use gold ones when we're doing natural wood ceilings. Hopefully you can see these holes all the way across. We want to make them perfectly straight, and then we just countersink those just slightly. And the reason that we do this instead of gluing and nail, we don't glue these down, we just screw them into the ceiling, and that's so that we can get them out. If you ever need to get access to your air conditioner, your fan, wires for your puck lights, anything like that, it's really nice to be able to just drop these slats down and get access to the ceiling. And so we find it's a clean look as long as you line these up really nice and just screw these into the furring strips, and they hold really well. And with those trim head screws, I think they really look good. And again, those are on our Google Doc. You can check out that in the link below. So hopefully this video has helped you to kind of get some direction on how to do your walls and ceiling in your van. We've got tons of other videos on the channel about van building, about van life, van products, how-tos. So if you want to see more videos like this, definitely check those out. So consider subscribing and be sure to smash that like button. And we'll see you in the next video. Jeff with Thrive Vans, Thrive On. See ya.